sure read, in all the interviews with every type of inebriate, there is yet to be discovered one person who has solved his drinking problem as a result of his incarceration in jail. I wrote that while I was the Attorney General of the state of California. I want you to know that everything I've seen since then proves that statement to be true. I believe, and I've always believed, that inebriation, the Skid Row problem, is not a penal or jail problem. It's a public health problem and should be solved as such. It's the greatest public health problem that we have in the state of California today.
Our efforts are limited by the law, our efforts are limited by our facilities, and I might say that while we are charged with doing as we are doing, treating this problem and these people in a penal fashion, that the problem may be more medical and may be more one of rehabilitation, where the public, when they become aware of the tremendous cost, the public themselves will dictate that certain fields should be explored. Possibly this rehabilitation center, transient center that is more or less self-supporting would be of tremendous help in this large, and in that connection, I might say that strictly speaking, the alcoholic is not a criminal, but his activities give rise oftentimes to criminal activities that bring him before us, and he is treated in a court, whereas there is, as I suggested, the possibility that maybe the community and society generally should look into the feasibility of the medical aspect of this problem.
Mentioning the type of crimes they commit, they do not commit then, by and large, the major crime.
No, I wouldn't say the major crime is committed by the so-called alcoholic. We're speaking of the so-called Skid Row alcoholic. Generally, they hurt themselves more than they commit crimes, but it does give rise to petty crimes, and occasionally there are crimes that arise while people are intoxicated, crimes that a right-thinking man probably wouldn't commit. The poverty that arises from that long-continued state will give rise to thievery and quarreling, and naturally that gives rise to fighting and disturbing the peace, battery, and various kinds of thievery, and sometimes violence ensues.
Cut.
Sacramento's West End area. It's in the lower part of Sacramento, 1st, 2nd, 3rd Streets, J and K, and probably the most famous landmark in the West End is the Capital City Rescue Mission. It's been here for 5 years, and the man who started the Capital City Rescue Mission is Hal Kemper. He's with me today, and he's our guest on Camera 3. And also tomorrow we'll be talking about the mission and what's going to happen now that it's closing. Hal, the mission is closing. Why is it closing?
It's closing because we've been here for 5 years, Spencer, and I've had the privilege of helping countless thousands of the men we fed here through the years, 1.25 million meals, believe it or not. We've kept a basic average and tally. And the fact that through the 5 years that I've been here, I never dreamed, even though my own father in Utah died as a drunkard. He died at the young age of just a little bit over 50. I had the heartache of seeing him die of pneumonia caused by drunkenness, and realizing what the alcohol and such as that can do. I've fought the battle here for 5 years of seeing men who I thought were straightening out. They were doing real good for a long time, and then suddenly, just boom, the ones you had to seem the most confidence in, Spencer, are the ones that you try to help, and you find yourself almost pleading and wondering what is the answer to this thing, and yet you knowing that it's with God's help, that's the major source, but yet what can you as an individual do? And so as we've seen teenage kids coming down through here throwing bottles at the men and tomatoes and eggs and saying cursing and blasphemous things to them and calling them wino and drunks and bums and tramps and derelicts, my heart began to go more and more out to these young kids, and I've reached the point in my life, I'll be 40 in January, I have a few years left. I've reached the point in my life where I would like to help teenage kids who have not yet degenerated to Skid Row, who are perhaps headed there, and would like to help to salvage kids.
Hal, in the past 5 years here at the Capital City Rescue Mission, what has been your approach? How have you gone about helping the men? What do you do in the mission?
Well, we've had the joy of making the mission more or less a self-supporting basis. We've never been on any what you call fund drives or anything like many do these days. We've had the joy of being self-supporting through an outside gardening program where we had the privilege of mowing lawns and washing trucks and doing odd jobs all over town for real fine companies.
Basically, the men would come into the mission and they would want a meal. Is that how it starts?
Well, yes, they always looking for the creature comforts, you know, and we've had the joy of helping them to get their shaves here and giving them clean clothes and showers and helping them that way.
And then food.
And food, always. In the winter months, we always serve 3 meals a day, and through working with 4 fine dairies locally here, washing their trucks and mowing lawns and several bakeries, we've been able to give the men an average meal of a quart of milk, a pound of cottage cheese, and a bowl of hot soup, and plenty of bread, and oftentimes hard-boiled eggs. We did work for a hatchery, and so we've been able to give them good food, and it's all been earned by 4 or 5 men who has worked with me in the overall program, and so it's a few men helping themselves as well as all the men on Skid Row. It's been a real tremendous privilege.
In addition to the food, they also got religious services.
Yes, there's many different church groups come here through the month. We had 15 different groups, and they come down regularly each night and held services here, and that's more or less the food is the drawing card, and then afterwards the men eat.
Did the men get much out of the services, or did they just take it as something they had to go to in order to get the food?
A lot of them come with the attitude, well, you've got to get an ear banging or get a sermon before you eat. But there are a lot of them that appreciate it and have expressed their appreciation of the services. And there's always those that, no matter how good you are to them, they will find criticism. You know, it's one of those things.
Hal, tomorrow on Camera 3, let's talk about what's going to happen to these men after the Capital City Rescue Mission closes.
Yeah.
We're in front of the Capital City Rescue Mission. Yesterday we did a Camera 3 with Hal Kemper, who's with us again today, about the mission. Today we're going to talk about what's going to happen down here in the West End after the mission closes. Hal, what do you think will happen, especially to the men themselves?
Well, we've had many of them come up already and say they're sure sorry it's closing because, you know, they more or less counted on the resources of the mission to help them, and we've kept them in the basement below, out of the weather during the cold freezing months. And I might say this, it's real weird that after all the 3 years that the County Board of Health and these agencies, the fire department, and all those that could have bothered us, they haven't given us any trouble, but then they've been down here the last couple of days inquiring if anybody else is going to take over. There's an absolute pressure going to be put on to run these men out of this West End Skid Row. Now you watch. The powers that be are going to put the pressure on to run the bums, as they call them, out of the West End, which is rightfully their home, which has not been, there's been no means provided for them, and so they're being forced right over town. And all you got to do is start at the 5th and J and go right on up to 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, on up to 12th, and on over to the left. And believe it or not, there's a brand new Skid Row being formed here in this city.
Now, you think a lot of these men that you know are going to go uptown to what area, do you think?
They're already there. they come down here at night to eat, but over town, they're uptown stemming. That's another word for panhandling and mooching. You know, stemming is that you see them up to 12th Street, 13th, up there bothering people along the road asking for a nickel or a dime for a cup of coffee, but you know where it's going. And people are getting tired of it, I know that. But it's being caused by the agency's attitude towards these men down here, and they are forcing them up.
What about yourself? How did your family take your being the manager of the Capital City Rescue Mission?
I have a sweet dear wife, Shirley, who's been living with me here right at the mission in a little house out in the backyard. People are horrified at such a thing, but yet I've never been happier in my whole life, and we've never once been molested or bothered or no slurs or any slurring remarks.
And this is a rough area.
There's been 4 murders here within the last 6 weeks, within a block of the mission.
Well, is she happy, your wife, that you're going into other work
She's
now?
very happy to have been here with me, but she's also happy that I'm going into this teenage work with Teen Challenge, which is a nationwide organization of wonderful program of helping young people.
Hal, are you satisfied with the job you've done here? What kind of a record have you made, actually?
Well, actually, there's no way of really knowing, because there's many men who have been with us for a short time and then have left, and we know that have gone back to their families and have got reconciled to wives where there were separations and divorces pending and all. There's many cases where after they've gone back home, they've written us nice letters and thanked us for helping them out in the time of need, and also they found it hard to understand why they would have to degenerate to Skid Row before they would come to their senses, and yet sometimes it takes a shock treatment. We have several men here in town who we've had the joy of helping to find full-time jobs, and 2 or 3 of them have gotten wives and have even children now and families, and are really doing a fine job of it.
On the whole, what about most of the men? Most of them not rehabilitated, or?
Well, most of them, of course, are the transient vagabonds. They're here today and gone tomorrow. You know, that's what Skid Row is a basically transitory element, and the ones that we've been able to work with here through the years, we've seen a gradual improvement in some we've seen them just continually drop down and degenerating more and more, and we see them start from the sidewalk and end up closer to the gutter. We had the heartache of just finding one of the boys dead in a car that was with us for 2 years, and a real fine guy, but he just drank himself to death. This last drunk just did him in. He was just 50. I again say, like a broken record, that I would rather salvage a kid before he hits Skid Row than trying to salvage him after he hits it.
Hal, Sacramento is going to miss you, and the Capital City Rescue Mission also. Thanks very much for being in Sacramento and for being on Camera 3.
You're welcome.